So in the name of creativity, I didn't bother preparing a speech. That would defeat the whole purpose, wouldn't it? Good. Finding color in a black and white system sounds like a challenge. How can there be color in a black and white system? They sound like mutually exclusive realities, and that if there's a black and white system, it does not allow color. The truth is that in some way, real color can be found only in a black and white system. Because the black and white are the background, and all creativity and all art starts on the background of either white or black, or both. The whiter the white and the blacker the black, the better for creativity purposes. So the system is not black and white, the background is black and white, and that's necessary for creativity. But let's examine that a little bit. First of all, creativity is not the same as nonconformism. They're not at all the same thing. Not wearing shoes is not creative. It's barefoot. It is not a talent. It's a danger. So there's a difference between being creative and being nonconformist. You need no talent to be nonconformist. And of course, eventually, nonconformist becomes its own conformism. Because there is nothing really original or creative about it. So I asked this teenage girl, why she's wearing all the piercings and she says, I'm being original. I said, but you're the 10th one on your block to do this. If you had started it, I'd be impressed. So you're actually conforming. So what is true originality or true creativity? So people have always asked, where is the individuality when you come to a Farbrengen and everyone looks alike? Everyone's wearing a black hat, a white shirt. But we know that the truth is that if you want to discover your individuality, the only way to do it is to dress like everybody else, eat the same foods as everyone else, read the same books as everyone else, sing the same songs as everyone else, and then we'll see if there's anything original about you. True originality cannot be hidden or suppressed. If you are acting, dressing, eating, and reading the same as everyone else, on that background, your individuality will stand out. But if you dress differently, if you eat different foods, you read different books, is that original or just different? Is that really you, or is that the book you're reading? Or the clothes you're wearing? So, seeing the difference between, let's say, one mashpia and another. This one's style is soft and inviting. The other one's style is sharp and biting. They read the same books. They ate the same foods. They sing the same songs and they wear the same clothes. Now you see individuality. How did this one turn out to be his way and this one turned out to be his way when all their lives they've done the same things? So if you want to discover real originality and individuality, you have to have a background of black and white. Well, let's take that a little deeper. There is a form of creativity that comes from accumulation of talent and experiences. There's also a form of creativity and individuality that comes through a process of elimination. It's not how much more you have, it's how much you can get rid of that peels away the layers until you get to what is truly you, to what is the original and individual reality. Hasidus says, and you all know this, how do you come up with a new idea? Where are new ideas born? So if you ask any yeshiva bacher, he'll tell you that new ideas are born out of chachma, and chachma is a flash of insight. Comes in a second. And it's so intense that if you don't capture it in words or in pictures, it will disappear. And one moment you will say, I got it. And then you don't know what you got. It slipped away. See, that's an accurate description, but not a complete description. It makes it sound like the brand new idea, the really original thought, happens in a second. It doesn't happen in a second. It happens after agonizing hours of begging for an answer. Begging yourself. Agonizing discomfort over not finding the answer. Trying again and again to come up with an answer. This trying is really a process of elimination. In practical terms, you come up with a solution, an answer, and then you realize, no, that's not a good answer. So you reject that. Try again. Another answer. You try a second answer, and that doesn't work either. So you reject that one. You go through one possibility after another until you have forced yourself into the right corner, into the right answer. So the right answer never comes in a second. It takes a second, but it comes after a long and strenuous effort. There is, of course, natural, spontaneous genius. But we can't discuss that, because there's nothing to discuss. They're geniuses, and that's it. You're a Mozart, and there's nothing to talk about. By the way, Mozarts don't ask, is it okay for me to compose? Zalman Kleinman was living in Lud or in Kfar Chabad, wherever he was, and he was painting. And people said to him, Chassidus Shabbat, come on, what are you doing? It's not right. And at first he ignored them, but eventually it started to bother him. So he wrote a letter to the Rebbe. I don't know if you know about this one. He wrote to the Rebbe basically asking, can I be an artist? And the Rebbe said, ask the experts. Can you be an artist? I don't know. Are you good at it? What he meant to say is, am I allowed to be an artist? But he asked, can I be an artist? The Rebbe said, if you're an artist, you're an artist. What do you mean, can you be? You can't become an artist by my permission. Either you are, or you're not. So ask the experts if you have what it takes, if you've got the art, the talent. Mozart would never ask. Because when you're a Mozart, that's it, you're a Mozart. The process by which we get to the germ or the original essence of whatever talent we have is through a process of elimination. Taking that a little bit deeper, it's not just eliminating possible answers until you get to the right one. At the moment when Chokhmah kicks in and you come up with an original idea, that moment is when you basically surrender. You have tried so hard, you've looked for so long to find an answer, that you reach a point of despair where you just can't anymore. You've hit a wall. You can't think anymore. You can't pursue this anymore. And you've lost hope of ever finding an answer. And that's when the answer comes. When you let go of everything, then you get something new. There's a very practical story that illustrates this. There was a guy back in Lubavitch, kept coming to the Rebbe for a bracha for Parnasa. He had a horse and he would deliver wood or water, but he wasn't really making a living, and he kept asking the Rebbe for a bracha, and it never happened. Year after year. And then the terrible anticipated moment came, and his horse died. Now he was devastated. Came to the Rebbe and begged for a bracha. The Rebbe gave him a bracha and he became wealthy. So afterwards he asked the Rebbe, all the years when I asked for a bracha, it didn't happen. What was this year? What's special about all of a sudden the bracha is coming? So the Rebbe said, until now, every time you came and asked me for a bracha, for Parnasa, you meant, how much money can I make with my horse? Well, how much money can you make with a sickly old horse? Once the horse died, now you were open to new possibilities. When the horse got out of the way, now Parnasa can come. But before you were hung up on, you wanted to make Parnasa through your delivery. That doesn't make you a lot of money. Process of elimination. When you've literally lost hope of finding an answer, that's when a new answer, completely independent of anything you've learned before, can occur to you, and that is a spark of genius. The Frierdiker Rebbe tells a story that he was traveling with the Rebbe Rashab. I forget which country they were in, but they were staying in a very nice hotel. And the Rebbe Rashab sat down on the sofa, leaning against the arm of the sofa, with one leg up on the sofa. And he was lost in thought. The Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, gave him his privacy, and he went to take care of something. He came back 2 hours later, and his father hadn't moved. And the Rebbe continued to sit that way for a long time. Finally, the Rebbe Rashab opened his eyes, and he asked his son questions that were intended to elicit information about where they were and what day it was. But he didn't want the Rebbe to know that he had lost all connection to time and space. So he asked questions that would tell him indirectly where they were and what day it was. The Rebbe said that experience is called Klois HaNefesh. That's called ecstasy. Ecstasy is not necessarily expressed in activity, in loud noise, in jumping. Ecstasy means you've disconnected yourself from time and space, which means you're not in this world. That's a process of elimination. All Chassidus was created through this process. So whenever you read the Rebbe went into a dveikus and he thought about something and then he said, that dveikus is a process of elimination. Removing yourself from all things known and familiar to allow something new to germinate. It goes without saying that true creativity and genius does not in any way imply a license to be immoral. There is this notion that artists are above the law. That is not a process of elimination. That's a superego that could actually get in the way of creativity. Creativity is a result of humility, in the same way that beauty is the result of humility. All beauty comes from the absence of conflict. Colors that blend harmoniously create beauty. Anything stark is what it is, but you can't call it beautiful. So what is a beautiful face? You can't describe it in terms of measurement or size. The beauty of a face is the harmony of its parts. You take a really beautiful face and you change the nose to a beautiful nose from somebody else. Doesn't look right. It's no longer beautiful, because that perfect nose does not fit this perfect face. So beauty comes from harmony, and harmony comes from humility, where one color gives another color permission to be. When we leave room for things to exist, then we can come up with new and original ideas. When we force things to be the way we think they should be, then we're just using old information and trying to squeeze new beauty out of the old information. That doesn't work. And maybe it does work, but it's not genius. It's not original. It's not truly creative. It's just manipulative. You can manipulate new information out of old information. It's not creativity or artistry. So real creativity comes, number one, on a background of black and white. What is, now work with it. What's white is white, what's black is black, now what can you contribute? But if you refuse to accept that black is black and white is white, then you're not adding to reality, you're just denying reality. And then you end up with strange results. Black is black, white is white. Is there something original you can add? That's truly creative. Secondly, how will you add to the black and white? Only through a process of elimination. If you can eliminate conflict, eliminate tension, eliminate the ugliness that comes from tension, then you have created beauty. You've created something meaningful. Ultimately, we're talking about using art for Kedusha purposes. Ultimately, if done correctly, the art doesn't have to be used for Kedusha purposes. The art itself is Kedusha. When Zalman Kleinman asked the Rebbe if he should be an artist, the Rebbe didn't say, well, if you use it for good purposes. No. Art itself is a form of Kedusha when it's truly an art. Because the process of producing a work of art involves bittul, humility, and it involves achdus, finding the connective thread that brings together things that no one else thought could become one. They never saw the oneness, the achdus. And wherever you bring out achdus, wherever you bring out the continuous, endless, infinite thread of godliness, then that itself is Kedusha. So another, being capable of any form of art involves elevating the keli and bringing down the light. That's Kedusha. Bringing greater light into a keli, elevating a keli to greater light. And that means something like this. The painting, the composition, is supposed to capture something that is hard to capture. Something subtle, something elusive, something spiritual, intangible. And you're trying to capture it and contain it in something tangible. Now, the intangible does not allow itself to be captured. That's why it's spiritual. At the same time, the medium that you're using, whether it's the musical notes or the paint and canvas or the marble and chisel, these tools don't know how to be spiritual, and they don't know how to accept light. So they resist being elevated. The light resists being brought down. So there seems to be an unbridgeable gap. Like it says before Matan Torah, El Yenim Layerdu Lamata and Tachtenim Layalu Lamayla. Before the giving of the Torah, heaven was heaven, earth was earth, and they were not going to get together. The giving of the Torah broke that barrier. And all of a sudden, the holy and the spiritual can be contained in the physical, and the physical does not resist, but receives graciously the spiritual and the intangible. All art is the ability to capture the elusive in something concrete. Some people, and ask yourself what your art is, some people are really good at elevating the keli. I remember hearing Theodore Bickel was performing for us once, and somebody sitting next to me said, "What kind of guitar is he playing?" So he's playing a regular guitar, but he gets it to do what no one else can do. He gets sounds out of an ordinary guitar that other guitarists can't. So his talent is he can tease greatness out of an ordinary guitar. That's called elevating the keli. Did he have anything fantastically new and brilliant to say in his songs? Maybe not. But to get the keli to do what it did, that's an art. Then you have people on the other side of the they can express things that no one else can express, but they don't really capture it in the keli. So that you walk away saying, wow, that was special. You're not sure exactly what it was, but that was awesome. Yeah, but what was it? I'm not sure. Like sometimes you hear a lecture, and you know it's brilliant, but you have no idea what he's saying. Because he has a grasp of the oir, of the light, but he can't get the keli to absorb it. He can't get the words to actually express it. Was it these great thinkers who stuttered? When they tried to express their thought, the mouth couldn't keep up. So they were good with the light, they were not good with the keli. So some people have the talent of bringing the intangible closer to the tangible, and some have the talent of elevating the tangible to where it becomes a little intangible. Bringing godliness down or elevating the world. Milmailo lamata, mimato lamailo. Some people have both talents. They're incredible in their conceptualization and incredible in their application. Talented on both ends. Like God. Both talents. So, if you do that, if you bring the intangible to the tangible, and you elevate the keli and make it a little more intangible, that is Kedusha. You don't have to use it for a holy purpose. You don't have to create a work of art and hang it in your sukkah to make it holy. If it's a work of art, it is holy. Because the whole idea of holiness is to elevate or give prominence to the intangible over the tangible. That's called Tikkun Olam. Now, the existence of art and the existence of originality and creativity is all part of God's creation, and it's a very noble part of God's creation. It can't possibly be in conflict with God's commandments. That wouldn't make any sense at all. Somehow, we're not going to get into it tonight, but somehow every mitzvah you do should enhance your art, not hamper or stifle. Every mitzvah, every minhag, every hanhaga, everything that we do as Jews should improve our creativity, particularly with Hasidus. I mean, to put it in simplistic terms, part of the resistance to Hasidus was the resistance to creativity. Hasidus is essentially creative. It is original, it is creative, it elevates the ordinary and it captures the extraordinary. It's art. The world back in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, the Jewish world, as you well know, was not into art. They were into survival. And they were not doing that very well. So to introduce art at such a time felt very frivolous, it felt inappropriate, it felt scandalously irreverent. We've got serious problems. The Baal Shem Tov came along and said, God really loves you. And people say, oh, stop it. We got problems. Get real. What's with this love? It didn't fit. It seemed incongruous. They lived in a world that was not black and white. It was just black. And they didn't understand how you can, at such a time, devote yourself to these frivolous activities like Farbrengens and Nigunim and Avas Yisrael. That seemed too light. So there was resistance. But essentially, Hasidus is creativity. And that's why the emphasis in Hasidus is, what do you think? What do you believe? We know what we're supposed to believe. What do you believe? Where is your Avas Yisrael? You're supposed to have Avas Yisrael. Yeah, fine. That's the black and white. But where is your Avas Yisrael? And why is that important? Because God is creative. He is a creator. And if it's not your Avas Yisrael, then it's not interesting. Like a person who says, I have Avas Yisrael because, you're supposed to. That's not Avas Yisrael at all. That's not even Ava. It's nothing. I asked this guy. He was a big Talmud Chacham, a very frum guy, sits in Koilul all his life. I said, so how are you doing? You have Avas Yisrael? He says, Avada. I said, Avada? That sounds like you don't have any at all. What do you mean, of course? You know some of the Jews I know? Don't tell me, of course, you love them. You don't, of course, love them. They're not lovable. So what did he mean by, of course? He meant, look, I'm a religious Jew. I keep all the mitzvahs. Avas Yisrael is one of the big mitzvahs, so of course. Of course what? What he's actually saying, without realizing it, what he's saying is, I of course believe in Avas Yisrael. But I didn't ask you if you believe in it. I'm asking you if you have any. And he doesn't. He never even tried to. He thought Avas Yisrael was a belief. And everybody shares the same belief. If you're frum, you have Avas Yisrael. Chassidus came along and said, excuse me, you know that guy down the street? Do you or do you not love him? Don't tell me what you believe. And don't quote me from Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva had Avas Yisrael. I want to know if you have Avas Yisrael. And what exactly is your Avas Yisrael? How does it express itself? Why is that important? Why is your Avas Yisrael important? Why isn't Avas Yisrael generic? I don't want to use the cliche, God is in the details. But there's truth to that. The whole purpose of creation is to discover your Avas Yisrael. The whole idea of Dira B'Tachtena means God can be present in this world because of what you offer Him, not because of what He created. That makes sense? Let me put it this way. God didn't create the world to see what He is capable of. It was not an experiment. God created the world to see what you're capable of. That's the whole point. So if it's not your Avas Yisrael, then there's no purpose to creation at all. If God wants a world full of Avas Yisrael, He can create a bunch of
robots.
Yeah. Lovable and loving teddy bears. He didn't do that. He created a world where Avas Yisrael does not come naturally. And what pleases Him no end is when you come up with your own version of Avas Yisrael. But it's really yours. It's what you feel. It's what you have. It's what you produced. The same is true with Yiras Shamayim. The same is true with tznius. What is your tznius? Come up with your tznius. God can make a world that's very tznius. That was not the point. The point is, how does your tznius express itself? Where is your Yiras Shamayim? What kind of ahava are you capable of? In other words, ayeka. Where are you? Not where are my mitzvahs. Some people think that God asked Adam, no, so where are my mitzvahs? And that's not ayeka. God didn't ask him, where is your frumkeit? God said, where are you? What have you produced? I know what I expect. I want to see what you have come up with. And that's only after a couple of hours. Now we've had a few thousand years. What have we come up with? And whatever it is we have come up with is endlessly pleasing and beautiful to an infinite God. So, practically speaking, to be truly creative, you have to create a background of black and white. You will not be creative by acting strange. Creativity does not come from nonconformity. True geniuses, true artists, are given a certain latitude. Like, for example, a true artist can't be expected to be punctual. Because if you're truly artistic, you can't live by the clock. You can't say, I give you 20 minutes, make a masterpiece. You can't do that. So time becomes a little hazy for an artist, but not morality. The stronger your morality, the greater your creativity. Because the more you eliminate, the more you force yourself into an original space, into an original thought, into an original experience. But if you just sit around and try anything and see what happens, that's not an artist. That's a hedonist. And there's a difference. There's a huge difference. So ideally, we should produce the greatest art. We have the most fantastic black and white background. We have the humility from our Yiddishkeit, from our Chassidus, that allows art, that enables you to go through this process of elimination. And we have the most intangible concepts to capture on canvas or in music or whatever. So we really should be producing the best artists, the greatest art. And you don't need an excuse. You don't need justification. You don't need to do something special with your art to make it holy. It is holiness. You know, the Rebbe Rashab went to the museum, I'm sure you know that, and sat for hours enjoying some masterpiece in the Louvre or wherever it was. Did he need a justification? This inspired him to daven better? It doesn't say that in the Sikha. It says he stood there so long that the curator had pity on him and brought him a chair. So he sat and stared at the painting. And then he went back the next day. So obviously the Rebbe doesn't need an excuse. He doesn't have to do it l'shem shamayim. It is shamayim when it's done properly. Because true art is kedusha. Or art is kedusha, and kedusha is an art. It's not mechanical. Make any sense? We know, for example, people come to a Chabad house or to yeshiva, and they start to keep kosher. Not even by choice. It's just what the yeshiva it's what the yeshiva cooks. So they end up eating kosher food and not eating non-kosher food for the week or month that they spend there. We should take before and after pictures. It's amazing. It's a different face. The person has become beautiful. There's a beauty there that wasn't there before. And where does it come from? It comes from a more harmonious existence. Their neshama is not struggling with the food that's supposed to nourish it. In the absence of that struggle, There's a greater harmony even in the lines on the face, the shape of the face. There's a beauty there that wasn't showing before. And that's what the Gemara means. B'nais Yisrael yofes hein. Jewish women are beautiful, but their poverty hides their beauty. The poverty meaning the golus, the suffering, tension, conflict, robs you of your beauty. So all Kedusha is in fact beauty, art. All Kedusha is the removal of the resistance, the removal of the conflict and the friction between the Ruchnius and the Gashmius. And the more you can remove that barrier or that friction, the closer you get to holiness, and the holier the world becomes. Doesn't say any place that I know of in the description of what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. But is it safe to say that after Mashiach comes, we will all be artists? I think it would be an accurate description. And at the same time, we are all artists, and yet no two people will be alike. Because art is always original. So every individual will be a form of art, every neshama blending harmoniously with a guf, and every guf accepting graciously the holiness of its neshama. That's a work of art. That's God's work of art. And that's the world as it will be after Mashiach comes. Any questions, any subjects we want to talk about? Yeah.
I'm glad that you brought up this lecture, because I also try and break down the flesh and basically I noticed that people today, even in Chabad, are so stuck like in the world of action. They're so stuck like all or nothing. It's like the letter of the law, even in Chabad, and they're not really making room sometimes to relate to people on an individual level, to process the rules through the person's nature and environment and generation, and you know, it's just the Rebbe and Mashiach, you know. I mean, there's more to it than that, you know. The person doesn't even know how to be a human being and an individual, and you're talking about the Rebbe and Mashiach, you know.
But isn't that a danger with all artists? They become so spiritual, you can't even talk to them, they can't follow a schedule, they can't. Actually, when the Rebbe says the action is the main thing, he doesn't mean it's the only thing.
I know, but some people think that though.
Right. So what does it mean? It means like this. We talk about art, we understand art, we have art appreciation, we have art classes, we have... Are you going to paint something or not? The main thing is, take out the brush and let's see. Do something. Yeah? Sit down by the piano and make it happen. But of course, it doesn't begin with the action, it concludes with action. But there's so much that has to precede that action. You're right. Or somebody said to me, at the end of every sikha, the Rebbe said that the action is the main thing. I said, yeah, but how long was the sikha? It was 40 minutes. How long did it take to say the action is the main thing? 30 seconds. So the other 39 minutes, 39 and a half minutes, what was the Rebbe saying? Doesn't matter, the action is the main thing. No, the action is the main thing of all I said before. You can't dismiss what he said in the first 39 minutes. So of course it's true. It's true. The artist who says, I'm very talented, I'm very creative, I'm very original, I just haven't done anything yet. I haven't gotten around to it yet, but I've got ideas in my head. I don't know if that makes you an artist. So of course the action is what gives it reality. But gives what reality? The action? An end in itself? No. So when the Rebbe speaks about how special Jews are, and then says, and the main thing is the action. Now that you know how special Jews are, do someone a favor. Don't just walk around saying, yeah, they're very special. Now put it, the art, the color, put it to work on your black and white background.
Also, Freeman, I noticed also that some people are like, kind of like going through the motions and in the dark because it's like no room for imperfections and never it's all the mice and there's no room for the emotional blockages that are like getting in the way. So
You mean there's no tolerance for it?
yeah, no tolerance, but they also don't look into it because it's all the mice and so also they may not realize that they're actually they think that they're on a higher level than they're actually on because they don't look into the emotional part of the equation.
Yeah, it's always been a problem with group dynamics. A certain amount of people will get lost in the mechanics of it. A psychologist asked me once, how is it healthy to have a code of law that any time you have a problem, you look it up and there's the answer and that's what you do? Is this healthy? What about the person? What about your personality, your opinion, your character? It's a very good question. If you have an answer to every question and a solution to every problem, are you a human being? Where's the human part? And I think that that's where davening comes in. The learning gives you the black and white. Then davening means reflecting, locating myself in view of the black and white. These are the laws. This is how it should be. Now where am I? In harmony with the law, not completely in harmony. Davening means davening is the ayeko. That's why Hasidim daven, not mechanically like for 20 minutes every single day exactly the same time, but sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, sometimes in a happy mood, sometimes in a sad mood, because now we're talking about you. Where do you stand in all of this? So you know what's right, but are you right? That's called davening. So people who learn but don't daven end up being a little mechanical. People who daven and don't learn end up in therapy. Too much on himself. Yeah.
You said something at the beginning of the lecture about harmony and octave in art. I was wondering how octave, does that mean togetherness with other people, when art can be so solitary. Like you said, the artist is so focused on their art that it's almost as if they have blinders on. Where does the octave come in a solitary activity?
Being an artist can be very lonely. It's not that that art is a social skill. It's that just as achdus in a community between people breaks down the barrier between ruchnius and gashmius, art itself, whatever form of art it is, breaks down the barrier between ruchnius and gashmius and creates an achdus there. Not a social achdus.
I remember reading something somewhere, which I always try to remember, trying to be creative. I think it was Irma Bombeck, a writer, a comedy writer from years ago. And she said, I want to stand before my Creator when the time comes and say, I have enough of that. I used everything you gave me. I'll try to remember that.
If she learned a little Hasidus, she would know that we are capable of infinity. We never use up everything. Because the neshama is endless, and its talents are endless. Art education?
Yeah, okay. Because I've approached this topic in the community, and everybody says we don't go there because everybody's perception of art and what is appropriate to teach the kids is different. So
Yeah, I'm really not sure because I've never had any art education. And I can imagine that in some way art education stifles creativity. No? It feels a little too mechanical. It feels a little too forced. I don't know. So maybe we're better off without the formalization of it. Not every kid who can sit by a piano is a great composer. So when you see a talent in your child or a tendency, you should encourage it. Putting him into a class with a bunch of kids who have no talent? I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful. So art education, I don't know. In many areas, the education actually stifle, even I think in medicine. Medical school ruins what could otherwise have been great healers. So in some cases, the great healer is a great healer despite medical school, not because of it.
just to elaborate a little bit on that, like when I think about art education, not necessarily think of putting a kid in a class, but think about making the child more vocabulary, just that the writer needs more words to be able to express himself better. If the child has an aptitude for painting, we want to, I mean, in the scenes we're doing the boundaries, etc., give them also the
That's fine. Here my point is this. It is not our goal to produce artists. It's not our goal to produce painters, musicians, composers. That's not our goal. So we can't make a project out of those things. At the same time, it is completely unacceptable to stifle a talent. That's cruel and unusual punishment. And there's nothing holy about that. So we don't have art education because that's not what we're trying to get our children to become. But if they are, you don't get in the way. And then a little help is useful. So real creativity is also spontaneous. It's not forced. It's not... And by the way, creativity should not be limited to artists, whatever artists means. Every life should be creative. Every kid sitting in yeshiva should be creative in what they're doing, in their learning, in their davening. I gotta tell you this great story. There was a woman at Beis Chana 40 years ago. She was a classical dancer. She had trained from the time she was 2. And she was good. Until at the age of 23, she got into a car accident and her dancing career was over. She was shattered. Not so much by the fact that she couldn't dance, but by the senselessness of it. 20 years of disciplined practice and effort and devotion, and now all of a sudden it's all gone. It just didn't make sense to her, and that really disturbed her terribly. And she ran around asking people to explain this. Why would God do this? How should she live with this? And nobody could come up with an answer. She came from a very holy Sephardic family. Traditionally, her family was already not observant, but the history of their family was. One night she had a dream. Her grandfather came to her in the dream, and he just looked at her and said, "Live your life the way you were taught to dance." And she had her answer. She was ecstatic. It was not a waste of time. Live your life the way you were taught to dance. The harmony, the balance, all these things are not limited to a stage or to a performance. That's life. So everyone should be dancing through life. Everyone should live gracefully. Everyone should live in harmony. That's life. A bacher sitting in yeshiva should be an artist. The art of learning, the art of understanding, the art of study.
Somebody who has a talent in, could be anything, even from cooking, music, dance, art. It could be a very, very big talent. People will appreciate it. That person doesn't feel they want to share with other people. They have, according to Torah, they have the responsibility to share with others. Is that Ahavas Yisrael even?
That's a complicated question because humility or privacy is also an art. There were so many things that the Rebbe concealed from us so effectively. That's an art too. So it's hard to say if a person has an art in humility that he should give that up for the sake of another art. But look what happened with the Baal Shem Tov. The whole story of the Baal Shem Tov is that in his previous life, he didn't share. He had the art of humility. And Eliyahu Hanavi came and asked him, "What did you do special?" And he would not. He would not reveal it. That's a talent. But then he was forced to come back again and share it. So if there's a question between sharing and not sharing, I would tend to lean towards sharing, even though the other is an art as well. You know, you get to know certain people, and you think you know all there is to know, and then suddenly you discover a whole nother layer. And after discovering this whole nother layer, you kind of get the sense that there's still more. That's rich. The art of singing. You hit a high note. Some singers, chazon and whatever, they hit the high note and you just want to run away. Because in that high note, it is so evident that they can't go any higher. That you feel like, oh, be careful. And you become very uncomfortable. It's not enjoyable anymore. Oh, that poor guy, watch it! You've reached the end of your rope, you're going to hurt yourself. You know? The beauty of hitting a high note is when he hits a note you never thought he could hit. And it sounds like he could do one more. That's amazing. So what's left unsaid, that's an art too. But in today's world, I think the benefit of the many outweighs the... So we should have a year of creativity, a year of originality, which means sincerity, which means truthfulness. And all of this beauty that we add to the world should overwhelm the ugliness in the world and the tension in the world and the inharmonious aspects of the world until the world is ready to be a keli for the ultimate light. And a keli means no resistance. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. Hatzlacha Rabba.